Sarah Whitley had always been a dreamer, but lately, even her dreams seemed to be failing her. The world outside her tiny apartment on Claremont Street was gray, wet, and heavy. It rained every day that summer, or at least it seemed that way. And with every passing storm, Sarah slipped deeper into a sadness that clung to her like mildew. Bills were stacking on the counter. Her job at the bookstore had been reduced to 2 days a week, and the phone calls from her mother had grown less patient, more strained. "Maybe you should come back home for a while," her mother had said during their last call. "You don't sound right." But Sarah didn't want to go back to Elms Ridge. She remembered it only in muted tones, brown carpets, the hum of daytime TV, the smell of antiseptic and overboiled vegetables. Her parents' house had always felt like a waiting room for a life that never arrived. So she stayed. She spent her days in pajamas, reading books she couldn't remember after putting them down. She stopped replying to texts. She rarely looked at herself in the mirror. Until one afternoon, she did, and something looked back. It started innocently enough. Sarah sat by the window, cradling a chipped mug of lukewarm tea, watching the rain smear the cityscape. She closed her eyes and imagined a world where it wasn't raining, where the clouds were violet and the sky was filled with birds that shimmered like oil slicks. She imagined she had wings of her own and flew through that endless sky, free and warm. When she opened her eyes, she was still in her apartment, but a small violet feather lay on her windowsill, soft, real, still warm. She blinked, laughed nervously, and threw it away. But that night, she dreamed of flying again, and when she awoke, her sheets smelled like ozone and feathers. The next fantasy came like a tide, a sunless world beneath the floorboards. She imagined her apartment floating above a dark ocean, its black waves lapping at the foundation, whispering to her in forgotten tongues. She sat on the floor and placed her ear to the boards. The wood was cold, wet, and beneath it, something breathed. The next morning, water stains curled along the edges of the floor. Mold spread like ink blots up the wallpaper. Her landlord didn't return her calls. Her neighbors stopped making eye contact. Sarah didn't care. She'd started to see things move beneath her furniture tendrils, thin and pale, brushing up from the cracks like fingers. Still, she wasn't scared. Not yet. In her fantasies now, people came to visit her. Friends who had long since stopped checking in. Children she never had, staring silently from her closet. They talked to her, whispered riddles and nonsense, asked her to remember things she'd never known, promised that if she stayed, they'd tell her everything. One morning, she found names scratched into the walls. Some were hers, others were strangers. One name, Molly Crane, kept appearing over and over. She Googled it. The only result was a missing child. Sarah felt her hands tremble. For the first time in weeks, she noticed the mess around her. Rotting food, dead light bulbs, shadows where there shouldn't be. The next day, the name appeared carved into her bathroom mirror. Outside, the city changed. More people walked quickly, heads down. Sirens echoed at night. Lights flickered even on sunny days. Sarah thought she saw her apartment building flicker too, like an image on a dying screen. The people she passed on her rare outings to the corner store watched her with suspicion, or was it fear? The man behind the counter crossed himself when she entered. A child pointed and screamed. Sarah smiled politely. She barely noticed. She was thinking about her next fantasy. This time, she imagined a tree growing in the center of her apartment. Tall and slick, bark black as coal, leaves made of whispers. It grew overnight, its roots cracking through the floor, its branches bending the ceiling. She slept nestled in its gnarled base, safe in its shadows. The police knocked the next day. A neighbor had called in a smell. They found nothing unusual, just Sarah and the tree, which none of them seemed to see. She offered them tea. They declined. The line between dream and day bent, then snapped. Sarah could no longer tell if she was awake. Her body moved of its own accord. She spoke in voices she didn't recognize. Once, she found herself outside, barefoot in the snow, with no memory of how she got there. The sky was violet. The air smelled of feathers. She heard the ocean below her feet. Her building emptied. People fled in the night, dragging suitcases, leaving doors open. Police cordoned off the street. News vans appeared. Reporters whispered about sickness, delusions, a rash of disappearances. Sarah watched from her window, sipping tea from her chipped mug. The violet feathers now covered her bed. The black tree sang lullabies. On the news, she saw her own face, blurry, zoomed in from across the street. The caption read, "Is this the source?" One day, she opened the closet. Inside was not her clothes, but a room filled with water. Floating there, untouched by time, was a girl, hair like seaweed, eyes wide open. It was Molly Crane. Molly smiled. "You imagined me," she said, "but I imagined you first. Now Sarah dreams endlessly. The world outside has sealed itself away. The building stands alone in a field of gray. Some say the city ended at its foundation. Others say it's just forgotten. The fantasies continue, and sometimes, if you listen close, you can hear her whispering from the window. Come inside. Let me imagine you too."